Hey, what's up guys, it's Oakley, and we'll be taking a look at some discussions happening on the forums right now, on the Total War forums. I'll link it below. But essentially what it is people speculating and talking about sieges and settlement design for the upcoming Thrones of Britannia. Now, I wouldn't just talk about online speculation if that were just all it was, but Jack Lusted down here further in the thread does post a response, and we can look a little bit at that. But anyways, the context for this discussion is basically people taking a look at the historical background for sieges in the time period of the Thrones of Britannia in this location, and trying to speculate what we'll see when it comes to sieges and, as the title says, settlement design. So the first thing to take away is, well, a lot of these sieges are going to be very different than what you would expect in Attila or Rome 2. At that day and age, you have these big, magnificent walls built around large, sprawling cities, whereas if you were to look in Britannia in this time period, a lot of these are much smaller in scale, not even encapsulating settlements. Only some of the Roman leftover cities would have that same design, but the other ones are going to be located on kind of geographically important and defensible positions, as you can see in this image here. So a system of basically ditches, palisades, different terraces with stone walls, and terracing, and then much smaller in scale. And accompanying that kind of smaller scale is going to be a smaller scale warfare. You're not going to have the huge lumbering siege towers and siege equipment that you would have expected from, a traditional large scale army in Rome 2 or Attila. This is going to be much smaller scale warfare. So that's essentially the context for the discussion here. So people talking about, what could we see for different settlements, speculating about it. Let's go ahead and take a quick look at what you can see if you do a quick Google search. So for instance, if you plug in British Dark Age forts, you can see a lot of interesting stuff, but by and large, they're going to be, as you can see here, even with some remaining images, just basically terraced fortifications on hilltops overlooking interesting regions and important regions. A lot of them bearing similar characteristics. The Picts would have had a lot of forts like this, and some of the cooler ones you can see here are built on very important geographic locations. So for instance, this one I believe is going to be Tintagel. And yeah, this is very similar. So this one here, I looked up the website. It's really cool, actually. You can visit it yourself. But anyways, this is going to be an artist's recreation of what it would look like. This is absolutely cool on an outcropping like that. Would be awesome for a siege map. Perhaps not the most fun to assault here, but CA could introduce beaches or various, maybe you go on the low ground and have to walk up a steep hill to get to the top. Anyways, that's the context for the speculation here. So a change in sieges from big sprawling cities with huge fortifications to more geographically centered defenses. So that's kind of what we're talking about here. And then accompanying scope and scale differences when it comes to actually doing the siege weapons themselves. Let's take a look at CA's response down here towards the bottom. So yeah, people posting a lot of images. Really cool to read through this thread. Like I said, I'll link it below where you can take a look yourself. But here is a response from Jack Lusted. Let's go ahead and take a look at this. So basically he's responding to one question saying, what the heck is CA going to do with sieges in Thrones of Britannia? So he says it's an interesting question. He can't talk too much about he can't talk about minor settlement battles, but he is going to talk about major settlements. Not quite sure what the distinction here would be, but okay, we'll run with it. So he says the blunt answer is we're making all new settlement maps based off settlements from the time period with adjustments as needed for the scale of Total War battle. So obviously that goes to just talk about the fact that, hey, you might see a similar city design to, let's find a good one, to something like this with a little fort on it, but obviously they're going to scale it up to be appropriate for Total War armies. So that's kind of what he's hinting at there. Okay, supersize it or make it larger. That's not too interesting. But here he says some of the historic settlements from this period in reality would have had enough space for more than 2 or 3 units. Yeah, they wouldn't have had that. So yeah, basically attesting to the fact that they're going to scale it up. So it's good to see, although I do hope that maybe on some minor settlement battles, we do see a little bit of a fortified position, but then the rest of your army, if you have a huge contingent, is going to have to take defensive positions outside. That would be kind of cool for both of them, almost like what we're seeing for, unfortified settlement battles in Rome 2, etc. So basically here we can move forward. It says we've gone for variety with settlement map design, so settlements don't level up as settlements grow in the campaign. That's interesting. So as opposed to as in Rome 2, where you can grow cities from small, medium, large, and extra large with increasing strength of towers and size and kind of perimeter of the battlements, they said they're gonna have maps that don't change. Yeah, I guess that makes sense. And also they say not only does it not change over time, but it doesn't change with the owner. So I'm kind of torn about that. Yes, it makes sense historically, but I was at least hoping we'd get at least 2 tiers or multiple tiers or some way to have a little bit more control because of the importance we stressed previously when discussing Alfred the Great's changes when he's trying to reinforce the different exposed settlements and trying to create a system of burrs, which is essentially turning villages into fortified positions. If the settlement doesn't grow and doesn't really change like this, that kind of strips away that that historical addition, and especially for the fact, like, if you attack a settlement, at one point in time, and then you attack it 300 years later and it's still the same, that's going to be troubling. So, yeah, this to me is a bit of a negative. Okay, let's continue on. There are over a dozen different settlement maps, with no map being used to represent more than 5 different places on the map. The key is giving variety across the campaign. So as you campaign in Ireland, you see different ones to England or Scotland. Okay, so to me, this again seems at face value, over a dozen different maps. Kind of interesting, but if you compare it to Rome 2, Rome 2 had different maps. It had way more than that, I'm pretty sure, especially for the different cultures that you would have seen. Greek maps, Roman maps, barbarian maps, and then the Eastern maps were all had their own flavors. And then within those, you had, at least 4 different types of maps that you would see repeated over time. And then each of those would scale. So to me, this isn't so much to brag about. I mean, you guys correct me if I'm wrong below, but a dozen different settlement maps doesn't really, that falls flat to me. Especially if they don't change over time. So, I'm kind of taking this with a negative light. Okay. And no map will be used to represent more than 5 different places on the map. Again, if they don't change over time, I think we're going to run into settlements over and over and over again. And it's going to be, it's going to stick out. Let's move on. Whether settlements have wooden or stone walls will depend on where they are on the map. So I guess, okay, that's just the difference. But again, it depends on where they are on the map, and it does not depend, according to the sentence, on the upgrades. So this seems to preclude the idea that you could take a settlement that otherwise has a wooden wall and turn it into a burr with a stone wall. So, okay, that's a little troubling again. Continued. Many of the old Roman walls in places like London or York still survive in this period, and those settlements will have Roman walls in this game. Okay, so that's good. So we have 3 different types, but still somewhat troubling, the fact that you can't upgrade your settlements to mix and match between these, at least as far as these sentences would indicate. Next, okay, so we've covered the walls and the differences. Let's talk about how you attack them. So he says here, the plan is for there to be artillery, as there has been in Total War games, but it will not be available straight away, and some factions may never gain access to it. Even when they are available, they'll have quite limited availability. So, okay, that's good. Historically accurate at this point in time. You're not going to be seeing artillery pieces, let alone, big siege towers and stuff lumbering across. As they go on to say down here, this means for most of the game, sieges will be about rams, towers, and hacking your way through gates and into settlements. The aim is definitely for sieges to feel different to Attila or Rome, and the maps will most definitely look different. Okay. All right, so definitely a change of pace in attacking cities. I like the fact that we're getting away from siege towers and artillery, not only because, we've seen that before, but also it'll bring us some more variety. And it reflects historical accuracy, but I think it'll be kind of fun. I do hope that they don't just give us the same stuff we've seen previously. Just, what I'm trying to say is, in Rome 2, we had the ability to bash down the walls, to take ladders up to the walls, to take siege towers up to the walls, and shoot it down with artillery. I hope this isn't just them taking away those last 2 options and leaving us with less options. I hope that with, instead of just stripping away content, they make the hacking of the gates better, the scrambling up the walls better. I hope they improve those as opposed to just stripping away other features. If they don't, that to me seems like a big wasted opportunity. Top that off with the fact that this is, building off Attila, which had siege escalation. I don't see any mention of siege escalation, especially with the fact that you have settlements here that are just wooden walls, stone walls, pretty small, and that don't change over time. The staticness of all that kind of seems to be getting away from the siege escalation. So that again has me worried, because siege escalation was something that I was very, very happy about. So I'm really eager to see how CA is proposing to, strip away features of sieges, but make them as or more interesting. This comment, of course, is a bit isolated, doesn't tell us too much, but overall, I take this negatively. Fewer settlements to me, it seems, settlements that don't change over time, and then finally stripping away features. I'm going to wait to see more details before we make this official, but overall, from what little this is here, it's a little troubling, to say the least. So yeah, that's it for this video. Let me know what you think below, and if anyone from CA is watching this, I definitely hope you guys can see the problems that we are seeing from our end, and I hope that you will address some of these comments to make sieges more exciting and more dynamic, because that's something coming off of Warhammer that we definitely are looking forward to. And if you're going to come from Warhammer with some of their stripped down sieges, and you're going to give us stripped down historical sieges, people are going to be pretty pissed off. So yeah, let's leave it at that. Anyways, that's it for now. See you in the next one, and peace out, everyone.